In the heart of the bustling city, young Max found himself alone in his family's apartment for the first time. His parents had rushed out for an emergency, leaving him to spend the night in the vast, empty space. As the sun dipped below the skyline, casting long shadows through the windows, Max's excitement turned to unease. As darkness descended, the usual sounds of the city faded away, leaving behind an eerie silence. Max tried to distract himself with movies and games, but the emptiness of the apartment seemed to swallow up every noise, amplifying the creaks and groans of the old building. With each passing hour, Max's sense of unease grew. Every flicker of movement outside the window made him jump, every distant siren sent a chill down his spine. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched, that something sinister lurked just beyond the walls of the apartment. As the clock struck midnight, strange things started happening. Shadows danced in the corners of Max's vision, shapes twisting and contorting in the dim light. Whispers echoed through the apartment, too soft to make out the words but filled with an unmistakable sense of malice. Max's heart raced as he listened to the whispers grow louder, filling the apartment with an oppressive weight. He tried to tell himself it was just his imagination, that there was nothing to fear, but deep down, he knew something was terribly wrong. He wished his parents would come home, wished he wasn't alone in the darkness. In a panic, Max reached for his phone, dialing his parents' number over and over again, but there was no answer. He was alone, trapped in the suffocating silence of the apartment. With trembling hands, he searched for a weapon, anything to defend himself against whatever lurked in the shadows. As the night wore on, Max's fear turned to terror as he realized he was not alone in the apartment. Something unseen moved in the darkness, brushing against him with icy fingers. He stumbled backward, his heart pounding in his chest, as the whispers grew louder, filling his mind with a cacophony of voices. With no other choice, Max ventured into the darkness, determined to confront whatever haunted the apartment. His footsteps echoed through the empty halls as he searched for the source of the whispers, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He knew he had to find a way to escape, to survive until morning. As Max explored the apartment, he felt a chill run down his spine as he came face to face with the source of the haunting, a ghostly figure, its form shifting and twisting in the dim light. He froze, unable to move as the ghost reached out to him, its eyes filled with a hunger that chilled him to the bone. With a cry of fear, Max stumbled backward, desperately searching for a way to escape. But the ghost pursued him relentlessly, its icy touch sending shivers down his spine. He knew he had to find a way to banish the spirit, to free himself from its malevolent grasp before it was too late. In a last-ditch effort to escape, Max fled to his bedroom, hoping to find some measure of safety behind closed doors. He barricaded himself inside, his heart pounding in his chest as he listened to the ghost's haunting whispers echoing through the apartment. He knew he couldn't hide forever, that he would have to confront the spirit head-on if he wanted to survive the night. As Max huddled in his bedroom, he searched for answers, scouring the internet for information on the apartment's history. What he found chilled him to the bone. A long-forgotten tragedy, a family torn apart by violence and betrayal. It seemed the apartment itself was cursed, haunted by the restless spirits of its past inhabitants. Armed with the knowledge of the apartment's dark history, Max formulated a plan to banish the ghost once and for all. He gathered supplies from around the apartment, makeshift weapons to use against the spirit. With trembling hands, he prepared himself for the fight to come, knowing that his very survival depended on it. As the night wore on, Max ventured out of his bedroom, steeling himself for the inevitable showdown with the ghost. He moved through the apartment with caution, his senses on high alert as he searched for the spirit's hiding place. He knew he only had one chance to banish the ghost, to free himself from its grasp before it was too late. With a determined cry, Max confronted the ghost head-on, brandishing his makeshift weapons against the spirit's ethereal form. He spoke the incantation he had uncovered, the words echoing through the apartment with a power that surprised even him. And in an instant, the ghost vanished, its presence dissipating like smoke in the wind. As the first light of dawn broke through the windows, Max collapsed to the floor, exhausted but alive. He had survived the night, banished the ghost that haunted the apartment, and emerged victorious against all odds. He knew he would never forget the horrors of that night, but he also knew that he had proven his strength in the face of adversity. But as Max sat in the silence of the apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling that the ghost was not truly gone, that its presence still lingered, waiting for an opportunity to return. He knew he would never feel truly safe in the apartment again, that the shadows would always hold a hint of menace. And though he tried to put the horrors of that night behind him, he knew that some nightmares never truly end. Days passed, but Max couldn't shake the feeling of unease that had settled over him since the night of the haunting. Reality seemed fractured, as if the boundaries between the living and the dead had blurred. He started seeing flickers of movement out of the corner of his eye, hearing whispers in the wind that sent shivers down his spine. Sleep eluded Max as nightmares plagued his every moment. He tossed and turned, haunted by visions of the ghostly figure that had tormented him in the apartment. Each day, he grew more exhausted, his nerves frayed from the constant fear that gripped him like a vice. Desperate for answers, Max reached out to anyone who might be able to help him make sense of the nightmare he found himself trapped in. He scoured books and websites for information on hauntings, hoping to find a solution to his predicament. But the more he searched, the deeper he sank into despair. In his search for answers, Max stumbled upon an old bookstore tucked away in a forgotten corner of the city. There, he met an eccentric old man who claimed to have knowledge of the supernatural. Intrigued, Max listened as the old man spoke of ancient rituals and forgotten legends, of a world beyond the realm of the living. Eager for guidance, Max begged the old man to help him banish the lingering spirits that haunted him. But the old man's help came with a steep price, one that Max wasn't sure he was willing to pay. He hesitated, torn between his desperation for relief and the fear of what the old man's methods might unleash. Despite his reservations, Max found himself drawn back to the old man's bookstore, unable to resist the lure of the forbidden knowledge he offered. Together, they pored over ancient texts and arcane rituals, searching for a solution to Max's plight. But with each passing day, the darkness seemed to close in around them, threatening to consume them both. As Max delved deeper into the world of the supernatural, he realized the extent of the danger he was in. The old man's methods grew increasingly reckless, his obsession with unlocking the secrets of the spirit world bordering on madness. Max knew he was playing with fire, but he couldn't turn back now, not when the fate of his very soul hung in the balance. With trepidation, Max agreed to the old man's plan, a dangerous ritual that promised to banish the lingering spirits once and for all. Together, they gathered the necessary ingredients and prepared for the ceremony, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of what was at stake. Max knew there would be no turning back once the ritual began, that he would be risking everything for a chance at freedom. As the ritual unfolded, Max felt a chill run down his spine as he sensed a presence lurking just beyond the edge of his perception. He glanced nervously around the dimly lit room, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. Still, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were not alone, that something malevolent watched their every move. As the ritual reached its climax, Max felt a surge of energy course through him, filling him with a power unlike anything he had ever known. But with that power came a terrible price. The old man's face twisted in agony as he collapsed to the ground, his life force draining away with each passing moment. Max watched in horror, knowing that he had unleashed forces beyond his control. With the old man's sacrifice, the ritual reached its conclusion, and the spirits that had haunted Max were banished back into the darkness from whence they came. But the victory was bittersweet, overshadowed by the cost of their freedom. With a heavy heart, Max fled the old man's bookstore, haunted by the memory of the life he had taken in his quest for salvation. As Max returned to his apartment, he couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that gnawed at him from within. The old man's sacrifice weighed heavily on his conscience, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked within him. He knew he could never truly atone for what he had done, but he resolved to carry the burden of his guilt for as long as he lived. With the spirits banished and the old man gone, Max found himself alone once again in the empty apartment. But this time, there was a sense of peace that hung in the air, a glimmer of hope amidst the darkness. He knew he had been given a second chance, a chance to start anew and leave the horrors of the past behind him. In the days that followed, Max worked tirelessly to rebuild his life, determined to move forward despite the scars that still lingered. He reached out to his friends and family, seeking solace in their company and slowly learning to trust again. Though the memories of the haunting still haunted him, he refused to let them define him, choosing instead to focus on the future. But try as he might, Max couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness still lingered, waiting for an opportunity to strike. He knew he would never be truly safe until he confronted the shadows that haunted him, until he faced his fears head-on and emerged victorious. With a steely resolve, he prepared himself for the battle that lay ahead. Armed with newfound courage, Max ventured back into the heart of the city, determined to uncover the truth behind the haunting that had plagued him for so long. He searched high and low, scouring every corner of the city for clues that might lead him to answers. But with each passing day, the darkness seemed to grow stronger, its grip tightening around him like a vice. As Max delved deeper into the heart of the city, he found himself face to face with the source of the darkness, a malevolent entity that had been lurking in the shadows, biding its time. With a cry of defiance, Max confronted the entity, his heart pounding in his chest as he prepared for the final showdown. He knew there would be no turning back now, that this was a battle he had to win at all costs. With a burst of energy, Max unleashed his power, banishing the entity back into the depths of the city from whence it came. He stood triumphant amidst the wreckage, his heart filled with a sense of peace that he hadn't felt in years. He had faced his fears and emerged victorious, stronger than he had ever been before. As the first light of dawn broke over the city skyline, Max emerged from the darkness, a changed man. He knew the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he also knew that he had the strength to face whatever challenges lay in store. With a newfound sense of purpose, he set out to rebuild his life, determined to leave the shadows of the past behind him once and for all. In the weeks that followed, Max reached out to the old man's family, offering his condolences for their loss. Though the wounds of the past would never fully heal, Max found solace in the knowledge that he had done everything in his power to make amends. He knew he could never undo the mistakes of the past, but he refused to let them define him any longer. With the ghosts of the past finally laid to rest, Max set out to create a new life for himself, a life filled with hope and promise. He embraced the challenges that lay ahead, knowing that with each obstacle he overcame, he grew stronger and more resilient. Though the memories of the haunting would always linger, he refused to let them hold him back from embracing the future. As Max looked out over the city skyline, he felt a sense of peace wash over him, a feeling of freedom unlike anything he had ever known. Though the scars of the past would always remain, he knew that he had emerged from the darkness stronger than ever before. With a smile on his face and hope in his heart, he set out to embrace the endless possibilities that lay ahead. And so, Max's journey came to an end, but the story was far from over. As he walked away from the city, his heart filled with hope and determination, he knew that life was a never-ending journey, filled with twists and turns, highs and lows. But no matter what lay ahead, he would face it with courage and resilience, knowing that he had the strength to overcome whatever challenges came his way. In the aftermath of his victory over the darkness that once haunted him, Max found himself reflecting on the journey that had brought him to this moment. He sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by the familiar comforts of home, yet unable to shake the feeling of unease that lingered in the shadows. Despite his triumph, questions gnawed at him, questions about the true nature of the entity he had banished, about the secrets that still lurked in the depths of the city. As he gazed out the window at the city skyline, Max couldn't help but wonder what other dangers lay hidden in the shadows, what other battles awaited him on the road ahead. Though he knew he had the strength to face whatever challenges came his way, he couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness was not yet done with him, that it was only a matter of time before it returned to test his resolve once again. One evening, as Max made his way home from work, he encountered a mysterious stranger lurking in the shadows of a deserted alley. The stranger's eyes bore into him with an intensity that sent a chill down Max's spine, their gaze filled with a sense of foreboding that he couldn't ignore. "Be wary, young one," the stranger whispered, their voice like the rustle of leaves in the wind. "The darkness is not yet defeated. It lingers, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. Beware its whispers, for they will lead you astray." Max's heart raced as he listened to the stranger's words, his mind filled with a sense of dread. Who was this mysterious figure, and what did they know about the darkness that had once haunted him? As the stranger disappeared into the night, Max knew that he would have to heed their warning if he hoped to stay one step ahead of the looming threat. Determined to uncover the truth behind the stranger's warning, Max threw himself into his research with renewed fervor. He spent countless hours scouring books and websites for information on the supernatural, desperate for any clue that might shed light on the mysteries that surrounded him. But the more he searched, the more elusive the answers seemed to become. The darkness that had once haunted him was like a shadow, slipping through his fingers whenever he tried to grasp it. Frustration gnawed at him, but he refused to give up, not when the safety of the city hung in the balance. One night, as Max wandered the city streets in search of answers, he stumbled upon an old abandoned building hidden away in a forgotten corner of town. Intrigued, he cautiously made his way inside, his footsteps echoing through the empty halls. As he explored the decaying ruins, Max felt a strange sense of familiarity wash over him, a feeling that he had been here before, though he couldn't remember when. He couldn't shake the feeling that there was something important hidden within the walls of the old building, something that held the key to unlocking the secrets of the darkness that still haunted him. With each passing day, Max grew more obsessed with the abandoned building, unable to shake the feeling that it held the answers he sought. He spent hours poring over old records and newspaper clippings, piecing together the history of the building and the events that had led to its downfall. What he uncovered sent chills down his spine, a tale of corruption and greed, of dark rituals performed in the shadows of the night. It seemed the building was once home to a cult that worshipped a malevolent entity, a being of unimaginable power that had been unleashed upon the world with devastating consequences. Armed with the knowledge he had uncovered, Max knew that he had to act fast if he hoped to stop the darkness from consuming the city once again. With a sense of determination burning in his heart, he set out to confront the malevolent entity that lurked within the abandoned building, knowing that he was risking everything in the process. As he made his way through the decaying halls of the building, Max could feel the darkness closing in around him, its oppressive weight pressing down on him from all sides. But he refused to let fear hold him back, not when the fate of the city hung in the balance. With a burst of courage, Max confronted the malevolent entity head-on, his heart pounding in his chest as he faced the darkness that had once haunted him. He spoke words of power, words that echoed through the empty halls with a strength he hadn't known he possessed. For a moment, it seemed as though the darkness would consume him whole, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare him in its grasp. But Max stood firm, his will unyielding as he fought back against the malevolent force that sought to destroy him. With a final cry of defiance, Max unleashed the full extent of his power, banishing the malevolent entity back into the depths of the abandoned building from whence it came. He stood victorious amidst the wreckage, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he surveyed the scene before him. Though the battle had been fierce, Max knew that the city was safe once again. He had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, stronger than ever before. With a sense of pride swelling in his chest, he knew that he had finally found the closure he had been searching for all along. As Max emerged from the abandoned building, he felt a sense of peace wash over him, a feeling of freedom unlike anything he had ever known. Though the scars of the past would always remain, he knew that he had emerged from the darkness stronger than ever before. With a newfound sense of purpose, Max set out to rebuild his life, determined to leave the shadows of the past behind him once and for all. Though he knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, he also knew that he had the strength to face whatever challenges came his way. And so, Max's journey came to an end, but the story was far from over. As he walked away from the abandoned building, his heart filled with hope and determination, he knew that life was a never-ending journey, filled with twists and turns, highs and lows. But no matter what lay ahead, Max was ready to face it head-on. With a smile on his face and hope in his heart, he set out to embrace the endless possibilities that lay ahead, knowing that he had the strength to overcome whatever challenges came his way. Despite Max's victory over the malevolent entity that once haunted the city, a palpable sense of unease still hung in the air. Strange occurrences became commonplace, a flicker of movement in the shadows, an inexplicable chill that swept through the streets. It was as though the darkness had taken on a life of its own, lurking just beneath the surface, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Max knew that he couldn't let his guard down, not when the city was still teetering on the brink of chaos. With a sense of determination burning in his heart, he set out to uncover the truth behind the resurgence of the darkness that threatened to engulf them all. One night, as Max patrolled the city streets in search of clues, he heard a faint whisper on the wind, a voice filled with malice and intent. It spoke of ancient rituals and forgotten prophecies, of a darkness that had been awakened by the folly of man. Max's heart raced as he listened to the ominous words, his senses on high alert. He knew that he was walking into danger, but he couldn't turn back now, not when the fate of the city hung in the balance. Driven by a sense of urgency, Max delved deeper into the heart of the city, determined to uncover the truth behind the whispers that haunted him. He found himself drawn to an old abandoned church, its crumbling facade a testament to the passage of time. As he stepped inside, Max felt the air grow thick with an otherworldly energy, the barrier between the mortal realm and the spirit world growing thin. He knew that he was treading on dangerous ground, but he refused to let fear hold him back, not when the safety of the city was at stake. Within the walls of the abandoned church, Max stumbled upon a group of cloaked figures, their faces hidden beneath hoods of shadow. They chanted incantations in a language long forgotten, their voices rising in a cacophony of sound that sent shivers down Max's spine. With a sinking feeling in his chest, Max realized that he had stumbled upon the source of the darkness that threatened to consume the city, the cult that had once worshipped the malevolent entity he had banished. He knew that he had to stop them, no matter the cost. With a cry of defiance, Max leaped into action, his makeshift weapons clutched tightly in his hands. He fought with a strength born of desperation, his every move calculated to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies. But the cultists were relentless, their devotion to the darkness unwavering. Max found himself outnumbered and outmatched, his breath coming in ragged gasps as he struggled to hold his ground against the onslaught. As Max fought against the cultists, a sense of determination welled up inside him, a determination to protect the city he loved, no matter the cost. With a newfound sense of purpose, he pushed himself to his limits, his every blow fueled by the knowledge that the fate of the city hung in the balance. Despite the odds stacked against him, Max refused to back down. With each passing moment, he felt the darkness recede, its grip weakening under the weight of his resolve. He knew that he had to keep fighting, to push through the pain and exhaustion until the battle was won. In the midst of the chaos, Max's mind cleared, his senses sharpening as a surge of adrenaline coursed through his veins. He saw the cultists for what they truly were, pawns in a game they could never hope to win, manipulated by forces far beyond their understanding. With a sense of clarity that bordered on enlightenment, Max redoubled his efforts, his every move calculated to strike at the heart of the darkness that threatened to consume them all. He knew that he was fighting for more than just the city, he was fighting for the very soul of humanity itself. With each passing moment, the tide of battle began to turn in Max's favor. The cultists faltered under the relentless assault, their ranks thinning as they struggled to maintain their grip on the darkness that had once empowered them. Max pressed his advantage, his every blow striking true as he fought with a ferocity born of desperation. He knew that he couldn't afford to hold back, not when the fate of the city hung in the balance. As the battle raged on, Max found himself face to face with the leader of the cult, a figure shrouded in darkness, their eyes gleaming with malevolent intent. With a steely resolve, Max squared off against his foe, his heart pounding in his chest as he prepared for the final showdown. The leader of the cult laughed, a sound that sent a chill down Max's spine. "You cannot hope to defeat me, mortal," they sneered, their voice dripping with disdain. "The darkness is eternal. It will consume you, just as it has consumed all who have dared to defy it." But Max refused to be intimidated. With a cry of defiance, he unleashed the full extent of his power, banishing the darkness back into the depths of the abyss from whence it came. As the first light of dawn broke over the city skyline, Max emerged victorious from the ruins of the abandoned church, his heart filled with a sense of triumph unlike anything he had ever known. The battle was won, the darkness banished once and for all. With a sense of peace settling over him, Max knew that the city was safe once again. He had faced his fears and emerged victorious, stronger than ever before. With a smile on his face and hope in his heart, he set out to embrace the endless possibilities that lay ahead, knowing that he had the strength to overcome whatever challenges came his way. In the aftermath of the final battle against the darkness, the city lay in ruins, its streets littered with the remnants of the chaos that had unfolded. Max surveyed the destruction with a heavy heart, knowing that rebuilding would take time and effort. But amidst the rubble, there was a sense of hope, a glimmer of light that pierced through the darkness. With determination burning in his heart, Max set out to help his fellow citizens rebuild their lives. Together, they worked tirelessly to clear away the debris and restore the city to its former glory, their spirits bolstered by the knowledge that they had emerged victorious against all odds. As the days turned into weeks, the city began to rise from the ashes, stronger and more resilient than ever before. Max watched with pride as the streets bustled with life once again, the sounds of laughter and conversation filling the air. But amidst the newfound sense of normalcy, Max couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness still lingered, waiting for an opportunity to strike. He knew that he couldn't afford to let his guard down, not when the safety of the city was at stake. One night, as Max patrolled the city streets, he encountered a mysterious figure lurking in the shadows, a stranger whose eyes gleamed with an otherworldly light. Max approached cautiously, his hand on the hilt of his weapon, ready for whatever danger might come his way. But as the stranger stepped forward into the light, Max's heart skipped a beat. It was no ordinary traveler who stood before him, but a being of immense power, a guardian of the ancient order, sworn to protect humanity from the forces of darkness. The guardian spoke of ancient prophecies and forgotten rituals, of a time when the world teetered on the brink of destruction. They revealed the true nature of the darkness that had once threatened to consume the city, a primordial force, older than time itself, that sought to devour all of creation. Max listened intently, his mind racing with questions. How had he never heard of this before? And more importantly, what could be done to stop it? With a sense of urgency burning in his heart, Max vowed to do whatever it took to protect the city from the encroaching darkness. The guardian nodded in approval, their eyes filled with a sense of pride. But they warned Max that the road ahead would not be easy, that he would face trials and tribulations beyond anything he had ever imagined. With a steely resolve, Max accepted the challenge, knowing that he could not turn away from his duty to protect those he loved. Armed with the knowledge he had gained from the Guardian, Max set out on a journey to uncover the secrets of the ancients. He traveled to far-off lands and sought out wise sages and mystics, hoping to find answers to the questions that burned within him. But the further he delved into the mysteries of the past, the more perilous his journey became. Dark forces lurked in the shadows, waiting to strike at any moment. Max knew that he was walking into danger, but he refused to let fear hold him back, not when the fate of the world hung in the balance. One night, as Max made his way through a dense forest, he encountered the Guardian once again. They spoke of a trial that lay ahead, a test of Max's courage and resolve that would determine whether he was truly worthy of wielding the power of the ancients. With a sense of trepidation, Max accepted the challenge, knowing that he would have to face his darkest fears if he hoped to emerge victorious. The Guardian nodded in approval, their eyes filled with a sense of solemn determination. As Max ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, he found himself facing a series of trials designed to test his strength and determination. He battled against his own inner demons, confronting the doubts and insecurities that had plagued him for so long. With each trial he faced, Max felt a sense of clarity wash over him, his mind sharpening with each passing moment. He knew that he was capable of overcoming any obstacle that stood in his way, that he had the strength and courage to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Max emerged from the depths of the forest, he felt a surge of power coursing through his veins, a power unlike anything he had ever known. He knew that he had passed the Guardian's test, that he was now ready to wield the ancient magic that had been entrusted to him. With a newfound sense of purpose, Max set out to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf the world. Armed with the knowledge and strength he had gained from his trials, he vowed to do whatever it took to protect humanity from the forces of evil. As Max stood on the brink of the final battle against the darkness, he felt a sense of hope swell within him, a hope that burned bright, even in the face of overwhelming odds. He knew that the road ahead would be long and difficult, but he also knew that he was not alone, that he had allies who stood by his side, ready to fight alongside him until the very end. With a steely resolve, Max set out to confront the darkness that threatened to consume the world. He knew that the fate of humanity hung in the balance, but he refused to back down, not when the future of the world depended on his strength and courage. As Max prepared for the final battle against the encroaching darkness, he knew that he couldn't face the threat alone. He reached out to his allies, rallying them to his cause and forging bonds of camaraderie that would prove invaluable in the coming conflict. Together, they trained tirelessly, honing their skills and sharpening their weapons in preparation for the inevitable showdown. Each member of the group brought their own unique talents to the table, and Max knew that their combined strength would be the key to victory. But even as they prepared for battle, Max couldn't shake the feeling of unease that gnawed at him from within. The darkness lurked just beyond the edge of their vision, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. As the day of the final battle drew near, Max and his allies convened to discuss their strategy. They knew that they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before, a primordial force of unimaginable power that sought to consume all of creation. With grim determination, they devised a plan to confront the darkness head-on, to strike at its heart and banish it from the world once and for all. But as they laid out their strategy, doubts crept into their minds. Was their plan truly enough to stop the darkness, or were they simply delaying the inevitable? As the final battle loomed on the horizon, a sense of tension hung in the air, thick and oppressive. The sky darkened overhead, clouds swirling ominously as if heralding the arrival of an ancient evil. Max and his allies stood on the precipice of destiny, their hearts heavy with the weight of the task that lay before them. They knew that the fate of the world hung in the balance, that they were the last line of defense against the encroaching darkness. With a final glance at one another, they steeled themselves for the coming storm, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them on the battlefield. As the first rumblings of thunder echoed through the air, Max and his allies took up their positions on the battlefield, their weapons at the ready. They knew that they faced overwhelming odds, but they refused to back down, not when the fate of the world hung in the balance. With a rallying cry, they charged forward, their battle cries mingling with the roar of thunder as they clashed with the forces of darkness. Each blow struck true, each spell cast with precision as they fought with a ferocity born of desperation. But despite their valiant efforts, the darkness seemed to swell and grow with each passing moment, its malevolent presence threatening to overwhelm them all. As the battle raged on, Max and his allies found themselves pushed to the brink of exhaustion, their bodies battered and bruised from the relentless onslaught of the darkness. They fought with every ounce of strength they possessed, but it seemed as though their efforts were in vain. With each passing moment, the darkness grew stronger, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare them in its grasp. Max felt his resolve waver, doubt creeping into his mind as he struggled to hold on to hope. But just when all seemed lost, a voice rang out through the chaos, a voice filled with hope and determination. It was the voice of the Guardian, urging Max and his allies to stand firm, to never give up the fight. With renewed determination, Max and his allies rallied together, their spirits bolstered by the Guardian's words of encouragement. They fought as one, their movements coordinated and precise as they pushed back against the encroaching darkness. With each blow they struck, the darkness seemed to falter, its hold on the world weakening with every passing moment. Max felt a surge of hope well up inside him, a hope that burned bright, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Together, they pressed forward, their hearts filled with a sense of unity and purpose that could not be broken. As the battle reached its climax, Max and his allies found themselves face to face with the source of the darkness, a towering monstrosity of pure malevolence, its form twisted and contorted by the power it wielded. With a roar of defiance, Max charged forward, his weapon held high as he prepared to strike the final blow. He knew that this was their last chance, their final opportunity to banish the darkness from the world once and for all. With a cry of triumph, Max unleashed the full extent of his power, channeling the energy of the ancients into a devastating attack that struck true. The darkness recoiled in agony, its form unraveling before their eyes as it was consumed by the light. As the darkness dissipated into nothingness, Max and his allies stood victorious on the battlefield, their weapons raised in triumph. But amidst the celebration, there was a sense of solemnity, a realization of the sacrifices that had been made in the name of victory. They mourned the loss of those who had fallen in battle, their names forever etched into the annals of history as heroes who had given their lives to protect the world from the encroaching darkness. But even as they grieved, they knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. With the darkness banished from the world once and for all, a new era of peace and prosperity could dawn, a future where humanity could thrive without fear of the shadows that lurked in the dark. In the wake of their victory, Max and his allies set out to rebuild the world, their hearts filled with hope for the future. Together, they worked tirelessly to repair the damage wrought by the darkness, to heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon the land. But amidst the chaos of reconstruction, there was a sense of renewal, a sense of possibility that filled the air with promise. Max knew that the world would never be the same again, but he also knew that it had the strength to overcome any challenge that lay ahead. With a sense of determination burning in his heart, Max set out to forge a new future, a future where the darkness would never again hold sway over the world, where humanity could thrive in peace and prosperity for generations to come. As the years passed, Max and his allies became legends, their names whispered in awe and reverence by future generations who would never forget the sacrifices that had been made in the name of victory. They passed into legend, their deeds immortalized in tales of bravery and heroism that would be told for centuries to come. But amidst the stories of their triumphs, there was a simple truth, that it was not their strength or power that had saved the world, but their unwavering belief in the power of hope. And so, as Max looked out over the world he had helped to save, he knew that the legacy of heroes would live on, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the power of unity in the face of darkness. Years passed since the defeat of the darkness, and the world flourished under a newfound era of peace. Yet, Max couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Despite the tranquility, whispers of unrest echoed throughout the land, a foreboding sign that danger still lurked beneath the surface. Determined to uncover the truth, Max embarked on a journey to investigate the source of the growing unease. He traversed distant lands, seeking out ancient texts and wise sages who might shed light on the mysteries that plagued him. But the deeper he delved into the shadows, the more perilous his quest became. Dark forces stirred, threatening to plunge the world back into chaos once more. In his quest for answers, Max stumbled upon an ancient prophecy, a warning of a great darkness that would rise again to consume the world. As he deciphered the cryptic texts, he realized with a sinking heart that the threat they spoke of was far from defeated. The darkness, it seemed, had merely lain dormant, biding its time until the moment was ripe for its return. Max knew that he had to act fast if he hoped to prevent the prophecy from coming to pass. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Max set out to rally his allies once more, determined to confront the darkness head-on and put an end to its reign of terror once and for all. As Max and his allies prepared for the impending conflict, a sense of urgency hung in the air, a feeling that time was running out, and that the fate of the world hung in the balance. They trained tirelessly, honing their skills and sharpening their weapons in anticipation of the coming battle. Each member of the group brought their own unique talents to the table, and Max knew that their combined strength would be their greatest asset in the fight ahead. But even as they prepared for war, Max couldn't shake the feeling of doubt that gnawed at him from within. Was their resolve strong enough to withstand the darkness, or were they merely delaying the inevitable? As the day of reckoning drew near, Max found himself plagued by doubts and insecurities. The weight of the world pressed down on him, a burden that threatened to crush him beneath its unbearable weight. He questioned his own strength and resolve, wondering if he was truly worthy of the title of hero. But with a steely resolve, he pushed aside his doubts, knowing that he could not afford to falter, not when the fate of the world hung in the balance. With a renewed sense of purpose, Max set out to confront the darkness that threatened to engulf them all, knowing that he carried the hopes and dreams of countless souls on his shoulders. As the final battle loomed on the horizon, a tense silence descended upon the land, a stillness that seemed to hang in the air, heavy and oppressive. Max and his allies stood on the brink of destiny, their hearts heavy with the weight of the task that lay before them. They knew that the coming conflict would test them to their limits, pushing them to the edge of their endurance. But amidst the uncertainty, there was a sense of unity, a bond forged in the crucible of adversity. Together, they stood as one, ready to face whatever horrors awaited them on the battlefield. As the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, the darkness descended upon the world like a shroud, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare all who stood in its path. Max and his allies fought with all their might, their weapons flashing in the dim light as they clashed with the forces of darkness. But the darkness was relentless, its strength seemingly inexhaustible as it surged forward, overwhelming them with its malevolent power. With each passing moment, Max felt his resolve waver, doubt creeping into his mind as he struggled to hold on to hope. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, he refused to back down, knowing that the fate of the world depended on his strength and courage. As the battle raged on, Max felt a surge of energy well up inside him, a power unlike anything he had ever known. It was as though a flame had been ignited within him, burning bright against the encroaching darkness. With a renewed sense of purpose, Max unleashed the full extent of his power, channeling the energy of the ancients into a devastating attack that struck true. The darkness recoiled in agony, its form unraveling before their eyes as it was consumed by the light. Emboldened by their success, Max and his allies pressed forward, their hearts filled with a newfound sense of hope. They knew that victory was within their grasp, and they would not rest until the darkness was banished from the world once and for all. As the battle reached its climax, Max and his allies found themselves face to face with the source of the darkness, a towering monstrosity of pure malevolence, its form twisted and contorted by the power it wielded. With a roar of defiance, Max charged forward, his weapon held high as he prepared to strike the final blow. He knew that this was their last chance, their final opportunity to banish the darkness from the world once and for all. With a cry of triumph, Max unleashed the full extent of his power, channeling the energy of the ancients into a devastating attack that struck true. The darkness recoiled in agony, its form unraveling before their eyes as it was consumed by the light. As the darkness dissipated into nothingness, Max and his allies stood victorious on the battlefield, their weapons raised in triumph. But amidst the celebration, there was a sense of solemnity, a realization of the sacrifices that had been made in the name of victory. They mourned the loss of those who had fallen in battle, their names forever etched into the annals of history as heroes who had given their lives to protect the world from the encroaching darkness. But even as they grieved, they knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. With the darkness banished from the world once and for all, a new era of peace and prosperity could dawn, a future where humanity could thrive without fear of the shadows that lurked in the dark. In the wake of their victory, Max and his allies set out to rebuild the world, their hearts filled with hope for the future. Together, they worked tirelessly to repair the damage wrought by the darkness, to heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon the land. But amidst the chaos of reconstruction, there was a sense of renewal, a sense of possibility that filled the air with promise. Max knew that the world would never be the same again, but he also knew that it had the strength to overcome any challenge that lay ahead. With a sense of determination burning in his heart, Max set out to forge a new future, a future where the darkness would never again hold sway over the world, where humanity could thrive in peace and prosperity for generations to come. Despite the victory over the darkness, a lingering sense of unease hung over the world. Max couldn't shake the feeling that remnants of the malevolent force still lurked in the shadows, waiting for an opportunity to strike. With a sense of urgency gnawing at him, Max embarked on a quest to uncover any lingering traces of the darkness. He scoured ancient texts and consulted with wise sages, determined to root out any remnants of the malevolent force that threatened to resurface. But the more he searched, the more elusive the darkness seemed to become, slipping through his fingers like smoke on the wind. Max knew that he was running out of time, that the fate of the world hung in the balance once more. In his quest for answers, Max journeyed deep into the heart of a dense forest rumored to be haunted by spirits of the ancient world. The air grew thick with an otherworldly energy, sending shivers down his spine as he pressed forward into the unknown. As he ventured deeper into the woods, Max began to hear whispers on the wind, voices that spoke of forgotten secrets and hidden truths. He followed the ethereal sound, his heart pounding in his chest as he delved deeper into the heart of darkness. But the deeper he delved, the more the whispers seemed to fade, leaving Max alone in the eerie silence of the forest. Lost and disoriented, Max stumbled upon a clearing in the heart of the forest, a sacred grove bathed in the soft light of the moon. At its center stood the Guardian, their form radiant with an otherworldly glow. With a voice like the rustle of leaves in the wind, the Guardian spoke of the ancient forces that still lingered in the world, of the darkness that threatened to rise again from the depths of the earth. They urged Max to heed the warning signs and prepare for the coming storm. With a sense of clarity dawning within him, Max knew that he had to act fast if he hoped to prevent the darkness from consuming the world once more. As Max journeyed deeper into the heart of the forest, he encountered a series of trials designed to test his faith and resolve. He faced challenges that pushed him to his limits, forcing him to confront his deepest fears and darkest desires. But with each trial he faced, Max felt a sense of inner strength well up within him, a strength born of determination and conviction. He knew that he could not falter, not when the fate of the world hung in the balance. With a renewed sense of purpose, Max pressed forward, his heart filled with a sense of hope that burned bright even in the darkest of times. As Max emerged from the depths of the forest, he sensed a growing darkness on the horizon, a malevolent force gathering strength in the shadows, poised to strike at any moment. With a sinking feeling in his chest, Max knew that the final battle against the darkness was drawing near. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down on him, a burden that threatened to crush him beneath its unbearable weight. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, Max refused to back down. With a steely resolve, he set out to rally his allies once more, knowing that together they stood a chance against the encroaching darkness. As the darkness descended upon the world once more, Max and his allies convened to discuss their strategy for the coming battle. They knew that they faced a formidable foe, one that would stop at nothing to see the world consumed by shadow. With grim determination, they laid out their plan of attack, each member of the group prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice if it meant protecting the world from the encroaching darkness. But as they prepared for war, Max couldn't shake the feeling of doubt that gnawed at him from within. Was their resolve strong enough to withstand the darkness, or were they merely delaying the inevitable? As the final battle began, Max and his allies clashed with the forces of darkness in a desperate struggle for the fate of the world. The sky darkened overhead, clouds swirling ominously as if heralding the arrival of an ancient evil. With each passing moment, the darkness seemed to swell and grow, its tendrils reaching out to ensnare all who stood in its path. Max fought with all his might, his every blow striking true as he battled against the encroaching shadows. But the darkness was relentless, its power seemingly boundless as it surged forward, overwhelming them with its malevolent force. As the battle reached its climax, Max found himself face to face with the source of the darkness, a towering monstrosity of pure malevolence, its form twisted and contorted by the power it wielded. With a steely resolve, Max charged forward, his weapon held high as he prepared to strike the final blow. He knew that this was his moment, his chance to vanquish the darkness once and for all. But as he struck out with all his might, Max felt a sudden surge of pain shoot through his body, a searing agony that threatened to overwhelm him. With a sinking feeling in his chest, he realized that victory would come at a cost, one that he was willing to pay if it meant saving the world from destruction. As Max's vision began to fade, he heard a voice calling out to him from the depths of his mind, a voice filled with warmth and compassion. It was the voice of the Guardian, urging him to hold on, to never give up hope. With a final surge of strength, Max struck out one last time, his weapon piercing the heart of the darkness and banishing it from the world once and for all. As the darkness dissipated into nothingness, Max felt a sense of peace wash over him, a peace born of knowing that he had fulfilled his destiny. As the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, Max emerged victorious from the battle, his heart filled with a sense of triumph unlike anything he had ever known. The world was safe once more, its people free to live without fear of the shadows that lurked in the dark. In the aftermath of the battle, Max's sacrifice was honored by the people of the world, his name forever etched into the annals of history as a hero who had given his life to protect the world from the encroaching darkness. But even as they mourned his loss, they knew that his sacrifice had not been in vain. With the darkness banished from the world once and for all, a new era of peace and prosperity could dawn, a future where humanity could thrive without fear of the shadows that lurked in the dark. And so, as Max's allies looked out over the world he had helped to save, they knew that the legacy of heroes would live on, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the power of unity in the face of darkness. As they delved deeper into the heart of the enemy's stronghold, Max's allies stumbled upon a chilling revelation, a pact forged between dark forces and those willing to embrace their malevolent power. It seemed that the darkness had found willing allies among the ranks of mortals, corrupting their hearts and turning them against their fellow man. With a sense of horror and revulsion, Max's allies knew that they had to put an end to the darkness's influence once and for all, lest it spread like a cancer throughout the world. As Max's allies fought to break the hold of the darkness on the world, they found themselves locked in a desperate struggle against overwhelming odds. The enemy's forces seemed endless, their numbers bolstered by those who had embraced the darkness's corrupting influence. But even as they faced wave after wave of enemies, Max's allies refused to give up hope, their resolve unyielding as they fought for the future of the world. In the midst of the chaos, a figure emerged from the shadows, a former ally who had succumbed to the darkness's corrupting influence. With a heavy heart, Max's allies faced their former comrade in battle, knowing that they had no choice but to stop them before they could unleash untold devastation upon the world. But even as they fought, a glimmer of humanity shone through the darkness that had consumed their former ally, a spark of hope that Max's allies clung to as they fought to redeem their fallen comrade and bring them back into the light. As the battle raged on, Max's allies found themselves pushed to their limits, their strength flagging as they faced wave after wave of enemies. But just when all seemed lost, a ray of light pierced through the darkness, a beacon of hope that filled their hearts with renewed determination. With a final surge of strength, Max's allies unleashed their full power, channeling the energy of the ancients into a devastating attack that struck true. And as the darkness dissipated into nothingness, they knew that they had emerged victorious once more, their unwavering resolve paving the way for a future free from the shadow's grasp. With the darkness banished from the world once and for all, Max's allies stood victorious on the battlefield, their hearts filled with a sense of triumph unlike anything they had ever known. But amidst the celebration, there was a sense of solemnity, a recognition of the sacrifices that had been made in the name of victory. As they mourned the loss of those who had fallen in battle, Max's allies knew that their sacrifice had not been in vain. With the darkness vanquished, a new era of peace and prosperity could dawn, a future where humanity could thrive without fear of the shadows that lurked in the dark. And so, as they looked out over the world they had helped to save. Max's allies knew that the legacy of heroes would live on, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the power of unity in the face of darkness. In the aftermath of the battle, Max's allies faced the daunting task of rebuilding trust among the people who had been affected by the darkness's influence. They knew that the scars left by the conflict ran deep, and that it would take time to heal the wounds that had been inflicted upon the world. With a sense of determination burning in their hearts, Max's allies set out to mend broken relationships and forge new bonds of trust among those who had been torn apart by the darkness's corrupting influence. But even as they worked to rebuild, they knew that the shadows of the past would always linger, a constant reminder of the darkness that had threatened to consume the world. Just when it seemed that peace had finally returned to the world, a new threat emerged, one that caught Max and his allies off guard. It seemed that remnants of the darkness had survived, lurking in the shadows and biding their time until the moment was right to strike. With a sinking feeling in their hearts, Max's allies knew that they had to act fast if they hoped to prevent the new threat from gaining a foothold in the world. Armed with their unwavering resolve, they set out to confront the darkness once more, prepared to make whatever sacrifices were necessary to protect the world from destruction. As Max and his allies delved deeper into their investigation, they uncovered evidence of a sinister plot, one that threatened to plunge the world back into chaos. It seemed that the remnants of the darkness had found willing allies among mortals, corrupting their hearts and turning them against their fellow man. With a sense of urgency gnawing at them, Max and his allies set out to uncover the truth behind the conspiracy, knowing that the fate of the world hung in the balance. But as they delved deeper into the darkness, they realized that the enemy they faced was more cunning and powerful than they had ever imagined. With the threat of darkness looming on the horizon, Max and his allies raced against time to uncover the truth behind the conspiracy before it was too late. They faced countless obstacles along the way, their every move watched by unseen eyes as they navigated the treacherous landscape of lies and deception. But even in the face of overwhelming odds, Max and his allies refused to back down, their determination unyielding as they fought to protect the world from the encroaching darkness. With each passing moment, the tension mounted, until it seemed as though the fate of the world hung in the balance. As the final battle against the darkness drew near, Max and his allies braced themselves for the inevitable confrontation. They knew that they faced overwhelming odds, that the enemy they faced was more powerful and cunning than anything they had encountered before. But even as doubt gnawed at their resolve, they refused to back down, knowing that the fate of the world hung in the balance. With a rallying cry, Max and his allies charged forward, their weapons raised high as they prepared to face their greatest challenge yet. And as the clash of steel echoed through the air, they knew that victory would only be achieved through unwavering determination and unbreakable bonds of friendship. In the midst of the final showdown, Max and his allies discovered the shocking truth: the mastermind behind the new threat was none other than a trusted member of their own ranks. Betrayal cut deep as they realized that someone they had once considered a friend had been working in league with the darkness all along, manipulating events from the shadows to further their own twisted agenda. With a heavy heart, Max confronted the traitor, their once friend's eyes filled with malice and contempt. The air crackled with tension as they faced off, the weight of their betrayal hanging heavy in the air. But even as the truth came to light, Max knew that there was no time for hesitation. With the fate of the world hanging in the balance, he and his allies prepared to confront their former friend in a battle that would decide the fate of all. As the battle raged on, Max found himself locked in a fierce struggle against his former friend, a battle not just of strength and skill, but of conflicting emotions and loyalties. Memories of their shared past flooded Max's mind, threatening to distract him from the task at hand. He struggled to reconcile the person he once knew with the betrayer standing before him, their eyes filled with a darkness that seemed to consume them from within. But even as doubt gnawed at his resolve, Max knew that he could not afford to falter. With a heavy heart, he pushed aside his feelings of betrayal and focused on the task at hand, knowing that the fate of the world depended on his strength and courage. With a renewed sense of determination, Max unleashed the full extent of his power, channeling the energy of the ancients into a devastating attack that struck true. And as the darkness within his former friend began to wane, Max knew that victory was within reach. In the aftermath of the final battle, Max and his allies stood victorious once more, their former friend's betrayal laid bare for all to see. But amidst the wreckage of the conflict, there was a glimmer of hope, a chance for redemption and rebirth. With a heavy heart, Max reached out to his former friend, offering them a chance to atone for their sins and join them in rebuilding the world they had helped to save. And as they embraced their newfound purpose, Max knew that the darkness had finally been banished from their midst, replaced by a newfound sense of unity and resolve. Together, they set out to forge a new future, a future free from the shadows of the past, where trust and friendship would reign supreme. And as they looked out over the world they had helped to save, Max knew that the legacy of heroes would live on, a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity and the power of unity in the face of darkness.